The massive view screen on the bridge of the Celestial Claw flickered with sensor data as Commander Bluescale studied the small human cargo vessel drifting through the darkness of space. His scaled fingers drummed against the arm of his command chair, while his tail twitched with anticipation. After 3 cycles of tracking human shipping routes, they had finally caught something interesting. "First Officer Swiftwing, report," he ordered, his reptilian eyes fixed on the vessel's thermal readings. The avian officer ruffled her feathers as she checked her datapad. "The vessel matches known human transport signatures, Commander. Power output is minimal, likely running on backup systems. Life signs detect only 1 human aboard, but—" She paused, double-checking her readings. "There's something else in there. Something our sensors can't quite identify." Commander Bluescale straightened in his chair. Every member of the Galactic Coalition knew the stories about humans. While they appeared soft and weak, they were known to keep dangerous creatures as weapons. The Coalition's intelligence reports were filled with intercepted human communications about these beasts they transported across the stars. "Weapons status?" he asked, voice low and steady. "Non-lethal suppression fields are ready," replied Security Chief Rock Fist, the sturdy silicon-based officer's crystalline structure gleaming under the bridge lights. "Boarding team is standing by in full protective gear." The commander nodded slowly. "Very good. Send the standard hailing message. Let's see if they respond before we move in." The bridge crew waited in tense silence as the communication officer sent the hail. Moments later, a cheerful human voice responded. "This is the Lucky Star, Tom speaking. Having some engine trouble out here. Sure appreciate you folks stopping by." The casual tone made Bluescale's scales bristle. Either this human was very brave or very foolish. "Human vessel, this is Commander Bluescale of the Galactic Coalition flagship Celestial Claw. Our scans indicate you are transporting unauthorized biological cargo. Prepare to be boarded." There was a pause before the human responded, sounding more amused than worried. "Oh, that. No problem at all. Happy to have visitors. Just let me tidy up a bit." The commander's tail lashed in frustration. How dare this human treat this like a social call? "First Officer, lead the boarding team. Full containment protocols. If they resist." Sir, but—" Swiftwing hesitated. "The human seems rather cooperative." "That's what concerns me," Bluescale replied grimly. "No human would be this calm unless they had something powerful to protect them. Proceed with extreme caution." The boarding team assembled in the docking bay, checking their protective suits and stun weapons one final time. First Officer Swiftwing adjusted her helmet's sensors and addressed her team. "Remember your training. Humans are deceptively strong and clever. We don't know what kind of beast they're transporting, but intelligence suggests it could be extremely dangerous. Stay alert." The docking tube extended, connecting with the human vessel's airlock. Pressure readings stabilized, and the boarding team moved in with practiced precision. They swept through the cargo ship's corridors, sensors scanning for threats. They found the human Tom waiting for them in the main cargo hold. He was a plain-looking specimen, dressed in simple work clothes and wearing what appeared to be a friendly expression. Behind him stood a large metal container with warning symbols painted on its surface. "Welcome aboard," Tom said brightly. "Can I offer anyone coffee? Tea, maybe?" First Officer Swiftwing's feathers stood on end beneath her suit. No human should be this relaxed with an armed boarding party. Her attention kept returning to the container. Something about its design suggested it was meant to contain something alive. "By order of the Galactic Coalition, you will identify the contents of that container," she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. Tom glanced back at the container and smiled. "Oh, that's just my special cargo. Nothing to worry about, really." The team's sensors suddenly picked up movement from inside the container. Something was stirring. "Container breach protocol," Swiftwing ordered, her team taking up defensive positions. "Human, step away from." "Hang on," Tom said, holding up his hands. Let me explain. It's really not what you think. The commander's voice cut through their comms. First officer, status report. Our sensors just detected increased activity. Swiftwing's beak clicked nervously as she responded. Sir, we've located the human and the container. Something's moving inside. Awaiting your orders. There was a pause before Bluescale's response came through, cold and clear. Secure that container. Whatever beast they're transporting, we can't let it. A soft sound came from inside the container, making the entire boarding team freeze in place. It almost sounded like, was that? Swiftwing started to ask, but then the sound came again. From inside the container came what was unmistakably a yawn, followed by what seemed to be a scratching noise. Tom's smile grew wider. Sounds like someone's waking up from their nap. The tension in the Lucky Star's cargo hold could have been cut with a knife. First Officer Swiftwing and her boarding team maintained their defensive positions while Tom stood calmly beside the mysterious container, still wearing that irritating smile. Sir, Swiftwing reported to Commander Bluescale, the human is refusing to step away from the container. Should we use force? Before the commander could respond, another sound emerged from the container. This time, it was unmistakably a small whimper. Tom's eyes widened. Oh dear, sounds like someone really needs their bathroom break. Mind if I open this up? Unless you want a mess to clean. Remain where you are. Swiftwing ordered, but Tom was already reaching for the container's control panel. Team, prepare containment fields. She squawked, her feathers completely puffed up beneath her protective suit. The boarding team's weapons hummed as they charged their stun settings. Commander Bluescale's voice crackled through their comms. Do not let that human release whatever beast they're transporting. Use of non-lethal force is authorized. But Tom had already punched in the access code. The container's seals hissed as they released, and the front panel began to lower slowly like a ramp. The boarding team braced themselves, expecting some terrifying Earth predator to come charging out. Instead, they heard the gentle clicking of small claws on metal. A tiny golden-furred creature waddled out of the container, stretching its four legs and yawning widely. Its tail began moving back and forth in a rhythmic motion, and its tongue lolled out of its mouth in what appeared to be a happy expression. The boarding team stared in complete silence. Everyone, Tom announced proudly, meet Buddy. He's a 12-week-old golden retriever puppy. Buddy looked around at all the strange aliens pointing weapons at him and did what any proper puppy would do. He sat down, tilted his head, and let out a tiny bork. First Officer Swiftwing's weapon lowered slightly. This is your beast. Your dangerous weapon. Weapon? Tom laughed, kneeling down to scratch behind Buddy's ears. The only dangerous thing about this little guy is his puppy breath, and maybe his tail when he gets excited. As if to demonstrate, Buddy's tail began wagging faster, thumping against the metal floor with increasing speed. Commander Bluescale's voice came through again, more confused than commanding now. First Officer, report. What manner of beast has the human unleashed? Swiftwing struggled to find the right words. Sir, it's a small furry creature. It appears to be a juvenile. The human calls it a puppy. It's showing no signs of aggression. In fact, she watched as Buddy rolled over onto his back, paws in the air. It appears to be requesting belly rubs. Requesting what? The commander demanded. Tom had already begun giving Buddy his requested belly rubs, causing the puppy's back leg to kick in satisfaction. See, totally harmless. Well, unless you count stealing hearts as harmful. One of the younger security officers, despite their training, let out what could only be described as an awe. Sir, Swiftwing reported, I believe we may have misinterpreted our intelligence about human beasts. This creature appears to be some sort of companion. Buddy, having received sufficient belly rubs, got back up and began investigating his new audience. He approached the nearest security officer, tail wagging, and sat down again, looking up expectantly. It's performing some kind of ritual, the officer reported nervously. What does it want? Tom chuckled. He wants you to pet him. It's okay, he's friendly. Pet him. The concept seemed to confuse the entire boarding team. Commander Bluescale's voice came through again. I'm coming down there. This situation requires personal inspection. As they waited for the commander to arrive, Buddy had already convinced 2 of the security officers to remove their protective gloves so they could scratch his ears properly. The puppy moved from alien to alien, distributing his affection equally and democratically. You know, Tom said casually, watching his puppy charm the heavily armed boarding party, I've got some treats in my pocket if anyone wants to see him do tricks. First Officer Swiftwing, who had finally removed her helmet to get a better look at the creature, found herself asking despite her professional training. What kind of tricks? Commander Bluescale's footsteps echoed through the cargo hold as he entered, his tall reptilian form casting a shadow across the peculiar scene before him. He stopped abruptly, yellow eyes widening at the sight of his elite boarding team sitting on the floor in a circle, their weapons forgotten beside them. First Officer Swiftwing, he said slowly, explain yourself. Swiftwing jumped to her feet, trying to regain her professional composure. Sir, we were just investigating the creature's capabilities. By sitting on the floor, the commander's tail twitched with irritation. Actually, Tom chimed in. Buddy was showing them his shake hands trick. He's really good at it. Bluescale turned his attention to the small golden creature, which was now looking at him with great interest. This is the beast our sensors detected. This tiny ball of fur. Well, he's going to get bigger, Tom explained. But yeah, this is him. Want to see those tricks? The commander's scales bristled. This is not a social visit. We detected unauthorized biological cargo. Oh, all my papers are in order, Tom interrupted, pulling out a datapad. Buddy's got all his shots, his travel permits, and his emotional support animal certification. Would you like to see? Bluescale was about to respond when Buddy walked over to him, sat down at his feet, and looked up with big brown eyes. What is it doing? The commander asked, taking a step back. The puppy likes you, sir, Swiftwing explained, trying not to sound amused. That's his friendly pose. Likes me? It doesn't even know me. Bluescale's tail curled defensively. Tom reached into his pocket and pulled out a small treat. Would you like to give him this? It'll make his day. The commander stared at the offered treat as if it might explode. This is highly irregular. First Officer, surely our protocols don't cover this situation. Actually, sir, Swiftwing consulted her datapad. According to Section 47B of the First Contact Protocols, we are encouraged to participate in harmless cultural exchanges that promote understanding between species. And nothing promotes understanding like giving treats to a puppy, Tom added helpfully. Buddy, still sitting patiently, let out a small whine that seemed to echo through the cargo hold. Sir, one of the security officers spoke up. We've scanned the treats. They're just processed organic matter, completely safe to handle. Bluescale looked around at his crew, noting their expectant faces. Even the most hardened veterans among them seemed to have been affected by this small creature's presence. With great reluctance, he took the treat from Tom. Now what? He asked, trying to maintain his commanding presence. Hold it out flat on your palm, Tom instructed, and maybe crouch down a bit. He's still little. The sight of the imposing Commander Bluescale, terror of the space lanes, slowly crouching down to offer a treat to a puppy was something the crew would remember forever, though they wisely kept their amusement hidden. Buddy gently took the treat from the commander's palm, his tail wagging happily. Then, without warning, he gave Bluescale's hand a tiny lick of appreciation. It attacked me. Bluescale straightened up quickly. That's a kiss, Tom explained, laughing. It means he likes you. A kiss. The commander looked at his hand in confusion. This is how Earth beasts show affection. Dogs, yes. They're companions, not weapons. Humans have kept dogs as friends for thousands of years. They help us, comfort us, and make us happy. Blue Scale's expression shifted from confusion to curiosity. And this specimen, Buddy, he is trained for this purpose. He's still learning, but making friends seems to come naturally to him. Tom gestured at the boarding team, who were all watching hopefully for a chance to give more treats. The commander stood quietly for a moment, watching as Buddy returned to the security team, receiving pats and praise. Something about the simple joy in the room was affecting him in ways he couldn't quite understand. "First officer," he finally said, "update our report. This vessel is conducting legitimate cargo transport of—" He paused, looking at Tom. "What did you call it?" "An emotional support animal." "Yes, sir. Shall I note that the cargo has been inspected and approved?" Swiftwing asked, hiding a smile. "Indeed. And perhaps we should stay a while longer, to ensure all the documentation is in order, of course." "Of course, sir," Swiftwing replied. "I'm sure Buddy would appreciate a thorough inspection." What had started as a military inspection was quickly turning into something entirely different aboard the Lucky Star. Commander Blue Scale found himself sitting in Tom's small ship kitchen, watching in fascination as Buddy devoured his dinner from a bowl decorated with little bones. "And you feed it this processed food daily?" he asked, making notes on his datapad. "Twice a day," Tom corrected. "Growing puppies need lots of nutrition, plus treats for training, of course." The commander's tail swished thoughtfully. "Fascinating. And these treats serve as motivation for desired behaviors." "Exactly." Tom grinned. "Watch this." He pulled out a treat and held it up. "Buddy, sit." Buddy immediately stopped eating and sat down, tail wagging expectantly. "Now, lie down." The puppy flopped onto his belly. "Roll over." Buddy rolled across the floor with enthusiasm, ending up slightly dizzy but happy. Commander Blue Scale's eyes widened. Such precise control without any neural implants or behavioral modification chips. Just love, patience, and lots of positive reinforcement. Tom explained, giving Buddy his well-earned treat. Meanwhile, First Officer Swiftwing was reviewing the ship's security footage with several other officers on the bridge of the Celestial Claw. They watched in amazement as the screen showed Buddy's daily activities. "Look at this," she pointed to one screen. "The beast, the puppy, appears to spend approximately 70% of its time sleeping, often with that stuffed object." Another officer noted, pointing to Buddy's favorite toy, a worn plush rabbit. "And here," Swiftwing continued, "it seems to engage in spontaneous bursts of high-energy activity, running in circles for no apparent tactical purpose. The human calls it the zoomies," explained a junior officer who had been taking detailed notes. "Apparently, it's normal behavior." Back on the Lucky Star, Commander Blue Scale was experiencing another Earth dog tradition. Fetch. He held a small rubber ball, looking at it dubiously. "And this exercises both their physical abilities and problem-solving skills?" he asked. "Just throw it," Tom encouraged. "You'll see." The commander threw the ball down the corridor. Buddy immediately raced after it, grabbed it in his mouth, and brought it back, dropping it at Blue Scale's feet with a proud woof. "Remarkable retrieval instincts," Blue Scale muttered, reaching down for the ball. He stopped when he noticed his hand was moving on its own to pat Buddy's head. The puppy leaned into the touch, clearly enjoying it. "Sir," Swiftwing's voice came through his communicator. "We've completed our analysis of the security footage. You might want to see this." Moments later, the senior officers gathered around the main screen on the Celestial Claw's bridge. They watched clips of Buddy sleeping in various amusing positions, playing with his toys, and attempting to catch his own tail. "This is what our intelligence reports were warning us about," one officer asked incredulously. "This is the feared Earth beast." To be fair, Swiftwing noted, he is extremely effective at psychological warfare. She played a clip of Buddy giving puppy dog eyes while begging for treats. Commander Bluescale found himself nodding. Indeed, I've never seen anything capable of dismantling military protocol so quickly. Within hours, he had our entire boarding team compromised. Compromised with cuteness, sir, Swiftwing added with a slight smile. The commander turned to Tom, who was watching with amusement while Buddy dozed in the arms of a security officer who seemed to have forgotten she was on duty. Human Tom, Bluescale said formally, I believe we owe you an apology. We clearly misunderstood the nature of your cargo. No harm done, Tom replied cheerfully. Buddy loves making new friends, though I should warn you. Warn us. Several officers tensed up. Well, once a puppy makes friends, they're friends for life. You might find yourself with a permanent morale officer if you're not careful. The security officer holding Buddy looked hopefully at Commander Bluescale. Sir, about that permanent morale officer suggestion. The commander looked at the sleeping puppy, then at his crew's pleading faces, and felt his carefully maintained military discipline crumbling. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should discuss implementing a cultural exchange program. The next day, Commander Bluescale found himself in an unusual situation, sitting in his command chair while reading a document titled Basic Dog Care and Training Manual. His bridge crew was equally engrossed in their own copies, occasionally sharing interesting findings. Sir, First Officer Swiftwing called out, I believe I've identified a tactical advantage to these Earth creatures. According to this manual, they can detect intruders using something called a nose. Excellent observation. Bluescale nodded, making a note. Though I'm more interested in their ability to maintain crew morale. Look at Section 4. They're naturally skilled at what humans call emotional support. Down in the ship's recreation area, Tom was conducting what he called a Puppy 101 class. Several alien officers sat in a semicircle, watching intently as Buddy demonstrated various dog behaviors. Now, Tom explained, when a dog rolls over and shows their belly, it's not a sign of surrender in battle. It means they trust you and want belly rubs. Fascinating, muttered a silicon-based officer, carefully taking notes. And this tail wagging, it's not a threat display. Not at all. It usually means they're happy, though the speed and position can mean different things. He was interrupted by Buddy suddenly jumping up and running to the door, tail wagging furiously. Commander Bluescale entered, trying to maintain his dignified bearing despite the puppy dancing around his feet. Human Tom, he said formally, our research has raised some concerns about your beasts. I mean Buddy's training regimen. Oh, Tom raised an eyebrow. Yes, according to the manual, puppies require regular exercise, social interaction, and something called playtime. Your vessel seems too small for these activities. Well, yes, that's why we make stops. Unacceptable, Bluescale declared. As representatives of the Galactic Coalition, we cannot allow inadequate care of such an important morale officer. Tom fought to hide his smile. What do you suggest, Commander? We have converted Cargo Bay 3 into what humans call a dog park. First Officer Swiftwing has already installed appropriate toys and exercise equipment. For safety purposes, of course. Of course, Tom agreed solemnly, watching as several officers perked up at the mention of the dog park. Additionally, Bluescale continued, our medical team requires regular observation of the puppy's development. For scientific purposes. Scientific purposes, Tom repeated, noting how Buddy was now sitting in the commander's tail coil, completely at ease. Indeed. Therefore, I propose you and Buddy remain aboard the Celestial Claw until we reach the next major port, for proper documentation. The other officers tried to contain their excitement at this announcement, maintaining professional expressions that were somewhat undermined by their hopeful glances at Buddy. Later that day, the ship's internal cameras captured what the security chief would later insist was essential training footage. It showed Commander Bluescale in the converted cargo bay, throwing a ball for Buddy while consulting his manual. The key to proper throwing technique, he explained to a group of officers, is to maintain a consistent trajectory. Observe. He threw the ball, and Buddy happily retrieved it. The puppy then initiated what Tom had explained was a playbow. Front end down, rear end up, tail wagging. Attention! Blue Scale barked. The creature is displaying the universal sign for play. All officers are required to respond appropriately. The resulting game of group fetch would later be classified as Advanced Interspecies Communication Training. In his private quarters that evening, Blue Scale recorded his official log. Day 2 of Cultural Exchange Program. The Earth creature continues to display remarkable abilities. Today it successfully identified Officer Rockfist's hidden treats using only its olfactory sensors. Additionally, its puppy dog eyes technique proved capable of convincing our head chef to share his private food stores. He paused, looking down at Buddy, who had somehow ended up napping in his quarters. The puppy was sprawled on his back, paws twitching as he chased something in his dreams. Additional note. Blue Scale continued softly. Recommend immediate review of coalition regulations regarding ship pets. For purely diplomatic reasons, of course. 1 week into what Commander Blue Scale now officially termed Operation Canine Cultural Integration, the Celestial Claw had undergone some unusual modifications. The bridge now featured a small cushioned bed next to the command chair, complete with a nameplate reading Junior Morale Officer Buddy. Status report. Blue Scale commanded, trying not to smile as Buddy snoozed beside him, paws twitching in his sleep. Sir, First Officer Swiftwing began, we've received 17 requests from other coalition ships asking about our enhanced morale program. 18 now, the communications officer chimed in. The battle cruiser Starfang just sent their inquiry. They're particularly interested in something called a Labrador. The commander nodded thoughtfully, reaching down to scratch behind Buddy's ears, a motion that had become almost automatic over the past week. And the crew efficiency reports. Up by 23%, sir, Swiftwing reported. Though I should note that some of that time is being spent in the dog park, which is now classified as mandatory physical training. Blue Scale reminded her. The ship's intercom suddenly crackled to life. Commander to the mess hall. We have a situation. Blue Scale rushed to the mess hall, Buddy trotting happily beside him. They found Tom standing near the replicator units, surrounded by concerned alien crew members. What's the emergency? The commander demanded. Sir, Tom said seriously, your replicators can't make proper dog treats. This is a serious oversight that could affect our diplomatic relations. Unacceptable. Blue Scale's tail twitched with concern. What do you propose? Well, I could teach your kitchen staff how to make homemade treats. I have some recipes. 2 hours later, the ship's kitchen had been transformed into what Tom called a puppy bakery. The head chef, a normally stern creature with 4 arms and a reputation for throwing anyone out of his kitchen, was now carefully cutting bone-shaped cookies. The secret, he explained to his assistants, is to make them small enough for training purposes, but large enough to provide proper satisfaction to our junior morale officer. In another part of the ship, the engineering team had gathered for their daily technological exchange meeting, which mostly involved watching videos of different dog breeds that Tom had saved on his datapad. The smaller ones are called puppies, an engineer explained to his colleagues, but they grow into dogs. There are hundreds of different types. Look at this one, another engineer pointed excitedly. It's called a Great Dane. It's almost as tall as a juvenile Centaxian. And this one, a third added, can swim. Should we add a pool to Cargo Bay 3? Meanwhile, Commander Blue Scale was facing his own challenge, writing a report to Coalition High Command explaining why his warship needed a budget allocation for chew toys and tennis balls. Perhaps we should classify them as stress relief training equipment, Swiftwing suggested helpfully. Good thinking, Blue Scale agreed. And the dog beds, emergency relaxation stations. Their planning was interrupted by Buddy bringing them his favorite rope toy, tail wagging hopefully. This is clearly an invitation to engage in tactical strength training, Blue Scale declared, taking one end of the rope while Buddy playfully pulled on the other. Later that evening, during the night shift, security cameras captured what would become a common sight. Various crew members taking turns sitting with Buddy, sharing their problems, and receiving what Tom called free therapy. And then my clutchmate said I'm not assertive enough. A junior officer confided to the puppy, who listened with apparent interest while resting his head on her lap. What do you think? Buddy responded by licking her hand supportively. In his private quarters, Commander Bluescale was making a personal log entry. Day 7 of cultural exchange. Have submitted formal request to Coalition High Command for establishment of permanent K-9 division. Attached supporting evidence includes crew efficiency reports, morale surveys, and several photos of Buddy in his new Coalition uniform collar. He paused, looking at the small dog bed that had somehow migrated from the bridge to his quarters. Personal note: beginning to understand why humans call these creatures man's best friend. Though perhaps everyone's best friend would be more accurate. End log. Just then, Buddy trotted in with his leash in his mouth. Ah yes, Bluescale said, standing up. Time for our evening patrol of the ship. For security purposes, of course. 1 month after the historic first contact between the Galactic Coalition and Earth's most powerful diplomatic weapon, Commander Bluescale stood on the bridge of the Celestial Claw, reviewing the latest reports from across the fleet. First officer, he called out, trying to maintain his serious expression. What's the status of the K-9 integration program? Swiftwing pulled up the data on her screen, her feathers neatly preened except for a few that showed signs of recent puppy kisses. Sir, 27 Coalition ships have now been assigned their own morale officers. The Academy has officially added dog handling to their required courses. Excellent. And the new regulations? All approved, sir. Every ship over Class 3 now requires a minimum of 1 dog park, 2 treat dispensers, and an emergency belly rub station. At that moment, Buddy trotted onto the bridge wearing his official Coalition collar with attached rank insignia. The entire bridge crew straightened in their seats, fighting grins as the puppy made his morning inspection rounds, collecting pets and giving kisses to boost crew morale. Status report from the diplomatic course, the communications officer announced. The Regelian ambassador is requesting their own emotional support animal after witnessing Buddy's conflict resolution techniques at last week's conference. Ah yes, Bluescale remembered fondly, when he settled that centuries-old trade dispute by falling asleep in both delegates' laps simultaneously. The ship's intercom crackled. Commander, your presence is requested in Training Room 3. The new recruits have arrived. In Training Room 3, Tom stood before a group of eager alien officers, each holding a leash attached to puppies of various breeds. The room had been converted into what the Coalition now officially termed a hybrid species integration facility, though everyone just called it puppy school. Remember, Tom explained to his class, every dog has their own personality. Just like Commander Bluescale bonded with Buddy here, you'll need to find your own unique connection with your pup. Question. A tentacled officer raised an appendage. My golden retriever keeps bringing me things. Is this a sign of aggression? No, that's why they're called retrievers. They just want to help and make you happy. Fascinating, the officer muttered, looking adoringly at their puppy who was already fetching their drop data pad. Commander Bluescale watched the training session with pride. In just 1 month, the feared military force of the Galactic Coalition had been transformed. Ships that once carried only weapons now had storage bays full of dog toys. Tactical meetings regularly included discussions of proper scratching techniques and treat distribution strategies. Later that day, during the official ceremony to graduate the first class of Coalition K-9 handlers, Bluescale stood at the podium with Buddy sitting perfectly at attention beside him. When we first encountered what we thought was a beast, he began, we expected a weapon. Instead, we found something far more powerful: unconditional love and friendship. Thanks to Junior Morale Officer Buddy and our human friend Tom, we've learned that sometimes the strongest force in the universe is a wagging tail and a wet nose. The ceremony concluded with what had become a standard coalition practice: group fetch in the main cargo bay, now permanently converted into the fleet's largest dog park. That evening, in his quarters, Commander Bluescale made his final log entry about the original mission. Official report: Operation Unleash the Beast has concluded, but its effects will be felt across the galaxy for generations to come. The Galactic Coalition has been forever changed by the introduction of Earth's canine companions. Military efficiency is up, diplomatic incidents are down, and crew morale has never been higher. He paused as Buddy crawled into his lap, something that would have been unthinkable a month ago, but now felt perfectly natural. Personal addendum: I never understood humans' attachment to these creatures before. Now I can't imagine life without them. Perhaps the humans have been right all along. In a universe full of advanced technology and powerful weapons, sometimes all you really need is a good dog. End log, he said softly, reaching down to scratch Buddy's ears. Now, what do you say we go check on the night shift? I hear they've installed a new squeaky toy in the recreation room. Buddy's enthusiastic woof echoed through the ship, a sound that had become as familiar as the hum of the engines. The feared military vessel, once known for its impressive weapons array, was now equally famous for something else entirely: being the first coalition ship to have a four-legged, tail-wagging officer who had conquered the galaxy not with fear, but with love.